and welcome into the Extra Point Show presented to you by Fantasy Points. Final regular game week of the season. It's insane how fast this year has gone by. 18 weeks of football, Major. I feel like we just opened up this show like yesterday, and we blinked, and it was week 18.
It every year it's like going to camp. When you're a kid, you go to summer camp, you can't wait to get there. When you get there, it seems like it's over the next day, and then you're like sad again for a whole nother a whole half a year before we get back to what we love doing.
And you got to enjoy football on TV because off-season football can be a little different than during the actual season. So truly embrace this week as it's the last one heading into the playoffs. So there's actually a lot of games that will determine who makes the playoffs and who does not make the playoffs this week. So very important games on the slate. What we do each week on this show, we talk Underdog Fantasy player prop bets, and you can find that app through your web browser if you type in Underdog Fantasy and search that, or if you go to the App Store, type in Underdog Fantasy. And how it works, me and Major both go back and forth with a couple of picks. If you sign up on the site, it's super easy. You'll see a list of players and some higher or lower options on certain statistics there. So let's say you put down $5 and you grab a couple players, you can be making some money today, especially with the fantasy season over. It keeps football even more exciting and interesting. So if you are new and not familiar, go check that out. Use the promo code Fantasy Points, Fantasy PTS, for a deposit matchup up to $100. And I think, Major, we're probably going to shoot for 100% here on this final show, with it being our last one of the season. So this is a big one for us, man. What you got first?
I'm just go first. I'm gonna say, like, I heard it's gonna get a little spicy here today on the last one. I'm just saying, I don't know what's going on. I gotta see what Nick got up his sleeve right now. But for my first one, I'm gonna go Christian Watson, higher than 4 receptions. When I first seen it, I thought it was extremely low. I'm like, man, 4 receptions. But as I looked, he's only beat this mark he matched this mark only 4 times this year, but only beat it once, and that was week 16 at Miami. He had 6 receptions. Green Bay is looking to clinch a playoff spot, so I think they need a big game from him today versus Detroit. So I think they're gonna like kind of rely on him to move that offense a little bit. And I don't know, but the last 4 receivers, the top 4 receptions. The last receiver, the top 4 receptions versus Detroit defense was DJ Moore in week 16. He had 5. No one last week. I mean, your Bears, none of the Bears can reach that 5 reception mark. So
Per usual.
it's not going to be easy, but I think they're going to kind of force the ball to Watson this week to get those long plays.
Yeah, and with Watson, obviously not a great week 17 versus the Vikings. It was a great matchup on paper for wide receivers. One catch on 5 targets. I don't think him and Rodgers were on the same page. Probably more of the rookie not being on the same page. But the week prior was a great sign for him to hit this mark that you are saying he will in week 16. He only played 38% of the snaps, but he had 8 targets. I think it was like halftime or right around halftime that he exited the game because he was banged up. So he was on track to being hyper targeted in that game. And we know what he can bring with his, receiving yard and touchdown upside. But I think after having that down week, week
Right.
17, I can see them getting him going this week.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm gonna maybe I won't be as spicy as I said in the chat just because I reviewed the contract and there was a line in there about not being super spicy. So
A no
I'm gonna
spicy clause?
yeah, there was something in there. It was in tiny print too. So I'm glad I just
Yeah,
review contracts on a daily basis
I
like
like
that.
it. I like it.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go Raheem Mostert lower than 44.5 rushing yards. So week 15, Mostert exploded for 136 rushing yards, but Jeff Wilson was out of the mix in that game. Across the last 5 games, that's been an asterisk. Outside of that game, he's carried the ball 7, 11, 8, and 9 times across the last 5 weeks. He's hit 45 or less targets and 45 or less rushing yards in 4 out of 5 of his last games. So Jeff Wilson has had the ball more the last 2 games. Last week specifically, he carried the ball 6 more times than Mostert. The volume is just not there. So you're really just banking on him having these huge gains, which we've seen him do in the past. But again, if you're carrying the ball 7-8 times to hit 50 yards, you're just banking on that versus actually, carrying the ball to a more comfortable rate. Miami needs to win, and a New England loss would help them get in the playoffs. So this is a very important game. So I don't think it's going to be a huge piece of their game plan is to get their second running back highly involved in this game. So I can see him again carrying the ball somewhere between 7 and 9 times like he's been, and just hitting under that mark, which he's done in the last 4 out of 5 games.
Is he really the second running back though? It seemed like they don't know. It's like a 1A 1B thing, and it tends to like switch every week. So I don't. It's hard. I stay away from that Miami backfield. It's so hard to kind of put a finger on the pulse of that thing. But I'm with you on that one. I think it's going to be. I think with Jeff in there, they're going to split those carries. Whoever has a hot hand, I think is going to be the one to lead that backfield.
Important game for them too, and they got Teddy
Right.
Bridgewater. So are they going to have Teddy air it out in the game? I'm not entirely sure, but they have to win this one. They have to. So
Absolutely. Let me see here. For my next one, I'm gonna go with Jamal Williams, higher than 54.5 rushing yards. Williams will face a Green Bay defense that's ranked towards the bottom, given 147 rushing yards per game. Jamal has beat this mark 9 times this season. He's been balling, man. Like, you got to give it up. Like, last week was his best game of the season, going for 144 yards versus, again, man, versus your Bears. Sorry, bro, but he's on a hot streak right now, and the Lions actually playing pretty good. Like, they're out there balling right now. So let's see what happens this week. I think they did split the ball a lot back and forth, but I think it may be Jamal's backfield now. What you think about that?
I saw what he did last week. Obviously, it's a plus matchup on the ground when you face Chicago. Week 9 versus Green Bay, 81 rushing yards. So that's a pretty good sign. He had some heavy workload. I don't know how many years it has to be before you scratch the revenge game narrative, but obviously he's playing his former team.
Always a revenge.
Always revenge. Yeah. I think that if this game stays tight, he runs the ball a lot. Like, he carried the ball 22 times last week. As long as they can keep this game tight or build a lead, this offense, it's a good offense. It just, their defense started terribly this season in the beginning, and then they got better as the year went on. Both teams have to win this game for a shot to be in the playoffs. So I could see if they can get an early lead that they run the ball a lot against Green Bay and try to milk that clock. So I think if that happens, I'm comfortable with this line. The next one I'm going to go with on this list here, I'm going to go with Najee Harris, higher than 90.5 rushing and receiving yards. So Cleveland is a plus rushing matchup, allowing the 8th most rushing yards per game. They've allowed the 6th most fantasy points per game to running backs, just to kind of show what running backs do against Cleveland. Only 61 yards last time in week 3 versus the Browns for Najee Harris, but he's really stepped it up since the bye. Prior to the bye, he's had over 60 rushing yards in just 2 of 8 games. So he was running the ball pretty terribly. You can look at the matchups. Whatever you want to look at, he was running the ball bad. Since the bye, though, he's had 5 of his 8 games over 85 rushing yards. So major difference before and after the bye. Last week, he had 111 rushing yards, and in week 16, he had 95 total yards. So that's this mark. Again, it's total yards rushing plus receiving. So Pittsburgh needs a win, and both Miami and New England to lose to get into the playoffs. So very important game for them. I think attacking a weaker spot for Cleveland, which is their defense on the ground, might be in their game plan, especially seeing that Harris has been pretty solid after the bye, and also that he's coming off of a big game. So if he can combine for 91 yards through the air and on the ground, I think he has a shot at that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like Harris' game when he's feeling both of those stats. Like in week 16 versus the Raiders, he ran for 53 yards, and he had 42 yards receiving. I kind of like I like when he's playing that game. So if he can give you like 60 to 80 yards and 20, 30 receiving yards, I kind of like that stat line for him, and very doable. And like you said, it's a very important game, and coaches tend to lean on their best players um, during those tough games. So I'm with you on that one.
It's been surprising this year with Najee, just because last year he was so highly involved in the passing game, and it seems this year, like you mentioned, Week 16, that was a good game through the air for him. But this season has been so up and down with his usage, getting balls thrown to him, and I kind of wonder why, because it's not like it's a brand new coaching staff. I know it's different quarterbacks, but at the same time, you see a guy who was pretty good catching passes last season or involved in that. But then this season, it's like out of the playbook, it seems like. I don't
I
know.
just think you have a young quarterback, and I think trying to show off his arm a little bit, the small hand comments and stuff, I think maybe got
Yeah,
to him a little
yeah.
bit. So I don't think he wants to be a check down guy. So I think he's trying to stretch the field a little bit. So I'll put a little bit on that, just the quarterback being young.
I know that's something that can stick in your mind too for a long time. That small hands comment. So as soon as somebody tells you that, all you want to do is throw for 400 yards per game. So,
Right.
what's your next one, man?
I'm gonna go with Josh Allen, higher than zero point 0.5 interceptions. Josh has thrown 14 interceptions this season, with two coming a couple weeks ago. Versus, again, man, all my stuff is kind of tying back to your Bears for some reason today. I don't know what's going on.
Man,
We
at
got
least this
things
is a good
going.
one for us.
This is a good one this time.
Yeah.
In his 5-year career, Allen has averaged just under 12, or just around 12 interceptions per season. And New England's defense is tied with Pittsburgh for first place with 18 interceptions on the year. That's one per game. Like, that's a great average to have on that defense. New England they couldn't pick them off in week 13 when they played against them. So I think they're kind of due for at least one this week. So I'm gonna say that New England is going to intercept Josh Allen tonight or today.
Yeah, and he's I mean, obviously he's a guy that throws at a decent rate, 33.9 passing attempts per game. New England, not a walkover defense at the end of the day either. And when you got a guy throwing at a high rate, there's a chance for that. You mentioned Chicago. It's like he throws 0 or he throws 2, it seems like, because there's
Yeah,
been
exactly.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 5 weeks this season, he's thrown for a pair of interceptions.
Good
He's got a
stat.
bunch of zeros, but um, he actually went 8, 9, and 10 straight those weeks. Green Bay, the Jets, and Minnesota, 2, 2, and 2 interceptions. So I mean, we love the guy. Great quarterback, great for fantasy, great for the NFL, but that's in his resume a little bit there.
And again, I think, Belichick, he's gonna scheme something up, man. So I think they're gonna get at least one. Belichick is good for one just off a scheme.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. The mastermind.
Right.
Um, my next one, I'm going to go with Tyler Higbee, higher than
Jeez.
33.5 receiving yards. So the Seattle matchup has been the best tight end matchup for fantasy in points per game allowed this season, and they allow the most receiving yards per game to the tight end position. So they stand out when it comes to any tight end playing them. We saw in Week 16, Higbee had his huge day, catching 9 of 11 targets for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns from Baker Mayfield. He's hit this mark 8 times this season, but not a ton of times since the bye, in all honesty. But just seeing that we've saw the Baker to Higbee connection, we see that Seattle has been exploited this season by the tight ends. I feel like he's a bigger piece of this playbook, even when he hasn't had a ton of consistency. He's seen 101 targets this season, which is a career high for Tyler Higbee. So I'm sure, looking at this game, McVay, the offense, they see Seattle. They're like, hey, you know what? These guys are not good against tight ends. This guy just went off for us in week 16. Let's try to get him the ball. So I'm going to go for him to get 34 receiving yards, which could be like two catches.
Yeah. I'm gonna help you out with this one because every time I'm with Higby, he burns me every
Oh,
single
yeah.
time. So I'm just gonna go against you so he can
That's
like,
fair.
yeah. So I'm gonna go against him. I'm gonna go against you and him so you can win this one just because he burns me every single time I've been on his like bandwagon the last 2-3 years, and every single time, man, it never fails. Whenever I start him or do anything with him, I'm out of there. So I'm gonna go against this one just to help you out because you're my guy.
Yeah, that's good karma right there. You know the
Exactly.
direction that your takes can go sometimes with a specific player. So you are helping me out there. It's funny with Tyler Higbee too, because I was like pretty high on him early on in the season because he was getting a ton of targets. He was having
Mhm.
these good games. And I traded for him in fantasy in multiple leagues when Cooper Kupp got hurt because I'm like, this guy was already seeing a bunch of targets before. Cooper Kupp's out of the mix. Like this is about to be like, Travis Kelsey like junior, like the off-brand version, but hasn't been that consistent with them, at the end of the day.
Those numbers fell off. Like it
Ugh,
went from like what 11, 9, 10 receptions to like 1, 2. I
crazy.
mean targets, 5. Like it's I don't know with him. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So it's just inconsistent. So I like I said, I'm always on the opposite side of whatever he's doing. So I'm gonna throw you alley oop right now.
There we go. There we go. Sometimes 2 + 2 = 4 makes a ton of sense, but then it equals 5 with a case like Tyler Higbee. But
Always with
um,
you.
what,
Always.
what's your final one here? This got to be the big one here.
So my final one is like a player that I think we all forgot about for the season just because the team is so trash right now. But I'm gonna go DJ Moore higher than 58.5 receiving yards. Sam Darnold's been playing well this last 3 weeks, and DJ's been like the main benefactor of that, producing 73, 83, 117 yards the last 3 weeks. He's been on fire. I think he scored in each of those games as well. But it's
Yep.
going to be tough because the Saints defense, they have, they rank third. They only allow 194 passing yards per game. Um, and I think, you know, that defense is just so tough to break and Sam Darnold so shoddy too. So it's like, I don't know. I'm on DJ Moore's side because it feels like he's out there by himself, but he's been producing the last 3 weeks, and I think he's like, "Hey guys, I'm still here. Hey, fantasy world,
Yeah.
remember me?" So I think he's talking to us a little bit. So I'm a go with him for this last game. Let's have him a big game.
You know what? I like this, and I like the fact that you bring up DJ Moore because he's been solid the last 3 weeks straight. And I think for some people, they think like, oh, you know what? Maybe Sam Darnold and DJ Moore have a good connection. But I think people also forget. You mentioned people forgetting DJ Moore. I think people forget about Sam Darnold last season. Opened up the first, I think, 9 weeks as the starter. And,
Right.
and, and here's some of DJ Moore's receiving yards the first 4 games. 80, 79, 126, and 113. So this
Mm,
connection isn't brand new or anything. They've actually had a decent connection in the past, and now we're seeing it again right now. So the receiving yard total mark that you just brought up, I feel like is pretty low just looking at his last 3 games this season. And then look how he opened up last season, the first 4 weeks. So I like it. I'm with you, even against a tough matchup.
exactly.
Last one. This is going to be the night game, but this is going to be an exciting game to watch. Same division as my Bears, but we got Detroit versus Green Bay, and they got to win. If Detroit wins, I think they might. I think they need like Seattle to lose for them to get in, and then if Green Bay wins, they get in. So it's one of these two teams is probably going to get in the playoffs here, or at least have a good chance of getting in the playoffs based off of their win. So I'm going to go DJ Chark higher than 35.5 receiving yards. Again, crucial game. Last week, Detroit was able to pound the rock against Chicago. You mentioned that with Jamal Williams. Chark hit this mark in back-to-back weeks. He's had 108 and 56 receiving yards. And then if we look back to weeks 13 and 14, he finished with 98 and 94 receiving yards. He actually ranks number 2 in the average depth of his targets for the wide receiver position with 16.1. So it's under his belt that he can have these bigger receiving yard days. It's under his belt that he is targeted at a higher rate down the field. So getting 40 yards or 36 even doesn't seem like a difficult task when we've seen him do it plenty this season when healthy, knowing that the game is big, knowing they're going to be playing against Aaron Rodgers, who's probably going to be throwing the ball at a high rate as well. Jared Goff ranks 6th in passing attempts. He averages 34.6 per game. So I can see this game, them throwing the ball a lot, and knowing that he's hit this mark a handful of times since coming back from health. I'm going to go DJ Chark, 36 receiving yards.
No, yeah, that seems low. Like that's one of my players. One thing I love about him too is like he's on that 1 year contract. So he's every time he's on the field, he's playing for his next contract. So you're gonna get his best every single time. And like you said, it doesn't take that many receptions for him to hit that mark. He's averaging 18 yards per carry or for per catch. So it doesn't take much for him to get that. So he can get that all in one play. So and another person people don't talk about is Jared Goff. He's actually having a pretty good season, man. He's throwing that
Big
ball all
guy.
over the yard and everything. He has all those young talented receivers. He's he I mean, I would have him out here in LA. I wish he was still out here, but but Baker's doing all right. But yeah, I kind of like what's going on in Detroit. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I've been a Jared Goff guy for a while, and a lot of people were very anti Jared Goff coming into the season, but he's had a pretty good year. I mean, I know everybody always wants a new quarterback, but their offense has scored at a pretty high rate this year, and we're only seeing a glimpse of what they can do. I think they can continue to build, but that's it for our picks here. Make sure again, if you are not familiar with Underdog. There's no more fantasy football for the most part. Some people play in week 18, power to you for
Why?
that because
Why?
yeah, I know.
Why?
I mean, hey, you do it, you do it. It is what it is, I guess. But most of us do not, or a lot of people do not play in week 18. So how do you keep football fun? You bet on some stuff. You don't have to go crazy, but you can throw a couple bucks on Underdog. Use that promo code Fantasy Points, Fantasy PTS for a deposit matchup up to $100 just to make today even more fun. Major, any closing thoughts on anything, the season, the slate today, Underdog, random stuff, anything as we close this one out?
Actually, I want to get your opinion on the ring around the rosy throwback touchdown thingy. What like how do you call that play? Was one, how do you call that play? And two, like why does they always show their hand before like the playoffs? I don't know why they always give up all their secret plays during the regular season. But go ahead.
Well, so you played football, right? Then you play in
Right.
college.
Yeah.
I want to throw it straight back to you real quick. If you were, and I'm not, if you were on the opposing team, like I was a very like kind of hot-headed soccer player, very different. I was kind of angry in games and stuff all the time. I feel like if I was a football player and they did that to me, I would be like extremely mad that they even like attempted that against my team. I don't know.
No, it's funny. It's funny you said that. I was talking to my friend about this yesterday, and it was just like we would have had to fight. Like, I'm not gonna
Oh,
let you run
absolutely.
around and do all this like pretty, like, what are you doing? Like it was like a ballet. It was so beautiful how they just ran around and this information like went into we have to fight after that. You're not gonna embarrass me on live TV. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah. I think I'm false starting. I think I'm saying there's no
There
way
you
you're doing this play right now. And they had it called back because it was a touchdown, right?
go. Right. It was a touchdown.
Unreal. Yeah, they should save that for the playoffs, but I guess they gotta test out what works, what doesn't work at the end of the day. But I did want to say I want to give a shout out to Ben behind the scenes for
Absolutely.
pushing all the buttons this entire season, for running a great show, for keeping Major in line, for
Got you.
everything he's done, not just for the extra point show, but for fantasy points in general. So definitely big hats off to Ben this year for everything. So I want to shout him out.
Exactly. Yeah, man. Ben is the man. He's always getting us in here, getting us all straight all the time, keeping us on track. So yeah, shout out to Ben. Shout out to the whole team at Fantasy Points, man. Like we got one of the best squads, the best shows. Like, man, y'all got to tap in every week. You go find some nugget messing with these crew over here, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, good luck to everybody with your player prop bets this week. Enjoy the last week of regular season football, and have a great Sunday, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.